Welcome, everyone. My name is Marina Antunes, Festival Director for Spark Animation and President of the Vancouver ACM SIGGRAPH chapter. And I'd like to welcome you to this session in our Meet the Filmmakers portion of Spark Animation. Very excited to be here, joined by Tom C.J. Brown, the director of Christopher at Sea. Thank you for making the time, Tom. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I'm looking forward to talking about the film with you.
I'm really excited to speak with you because this is actually not your first time at Spark. It is interacting with us, but we screened Teeth way back in, I want to say it was 2015. I'm kind of picking it off the top of my head.
That's exactly right.
And that movie, I remember seeing it and thinking, oh my God, who are these guys? What are they working on next? I need to see all of it. So I'm really curious before we start talking about filmmaking and specifically Christopher at Sea, was animation something you always wanted to do?
Interesting question. No.
Oh.
When I was a kid, I really wanted to be a vet, like a veterinarian. And then I was doing kind of like biology, chemistry, physics, and art at the final end of sort of high school. And halfway through that, I went to the Bradford Museum of Moving Image, and I saw Barry Purvis's Achilles that was playing on like this little screen. And instead, in that moment of thinking, oh, I'm gay, I was like, ooh, I want to be an animator. This looks cool. So I changed everything that I was doing and I started learning about animation and stuff. And now I'm an animator.
That's so amazing. Okay, I have to ask, did your parents ever wonder what is he doing with his life? He's gone from being a veterinarian, which is like a good solid job, to being an animator, an artist, essentially, that, you know, it's hard to make a living as an artist.
Right. They are very supportive of everything that I do, but they do still talk about how I could have been driving around in a Range Rover, being a country vet.
Priorities, though, right?
Right, yeah.
So you made your first two films with Daniel Gray, and they're very dark. And Christopher at Sea is not quite as dark, but it's also not exactly a happy film.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about the progression of beginning, like at the beginning, working with someone else and starting to develop your voice and your style, and then moving away from that to work on your own in a film that looks very different, but there are still like overtones that feel very much like the work that you did with David?
Dan.
Oh, sorry, Dan, sorry.
It's all right.
Daniel.
My darling Daniel Gray. Yeah, I mean, I loved working with Dan, and it was, I think I do miss having that sort of soundboard for ideas when you're working on things. But one of the things that Dan taught me and that we did in both of our films, TOM and Teeth, was we created this sort of Trojan horse aesthetic. So basically we sort of started to draw people into the world of the film that we were creating by these kind of like lush visuals, and then slowly start to disrupt that and take the audience, once we've kind of like grabbed them, then we take them into a different direction and pull them astray and kind of play with them a little bit. So that's something that I think I carried on in Christopher at Sea. And also, you know, the visual styles are very different, but there's still stuff that, you know, the backgrounds from TOM are kind of created in the same way as we created the backgrounds for Christopher at Sea. So there's all these little threads that move through all of the films. But I do miss him, my sweet Daniel.
So let's talk a little bit about Christopher at Sea, because it's a really beautiful film and it's really an interesting film. Where did the idea for it come from?
There was sort of all these little different things that happened that connected into the final thing. But I think the first thing that happened was I was out at South by Southwest, and did you see that film Lava by Pixar?
Yes.
I saw that and I was like, I want to make a love story. And I want to do it my way. So I was like, right, I'm going to do this love story. And then I was like thinking about it. And then Michael Fukushima from the NFB, he posted on Facebook about this insane artist residency that was called 23 Days at Sea. And it was an artist residency on a cargo ship that went from the west coast of America across the Pacific and to Japan. And then when you got to Japan, there was like a gallery waiting for the art that you'd made on the ship. And I was like, what the hell? That is crazy. And I applied for it, but I didn't get it. But then I was like totally obsessed with this like visual of a cargo ship. And then I just put those two ideas together. And at the time, I was still parading around as a repressed homosexual, not out. And I was like thinking about this love story, and I was like, it just feels too sort of predatory for it to be like a heterosexual love story on a boat. So I was like, oh, it should be two guys. It should be a queer love story. And then slowly the film kind of took that love story and it started weaving into my kind of personal journey as a out and proud homosexual.
That's so amazing. Does Michael know that he's kind of somewhat to not blame, but
play.
that he was like he had a part to play in this film? Have you ever talked to him about it? Because that's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, he was also one of the first people that I sent the script to, so he does know that he is
good.
The instigator of this madness.
Well, it's a wonderful madness, but I think that this is interesting because I didn't realize that this was a bit of a personal story, as in, it's almost like you were working through the animation to, put yourself out there as a gay man. Is that right?
I kind of thought they would be like this fun surprise coming out piece, but it took so long that I was way out by the time this came around.
So when did the idea first start to germinate, and how long did that take before you even started doing animation on it?
Well, I was at South by Southwest with Teeth in 2015.
Oh, wow.
So that was like the first light bulb. And then I think after that, I started doing the in the winter of that year. I remember because I was at AFI Fest and I was on the red carpet and I was like, oh no, I haven't sent my application for that cargo ship. So I ran across the street. And then, so after that, I think the beginning of 2016, I was doing the first concept work and stuff. And then it just took so long to get the money because I did the MIFA pitches at Annecy in 2018. So I got half the money then. And then we started production. I got a residency at Cyclic Animation. And I started that January 2021.
Oh, wow. So did you have a full script by the time you started the animation?
Yeah, I had a full animatic ready to go. So yeah, the first day at the residency, I had 5 amazing animators and we were off.
That's amazing. So by the time you actually started, so sorry, what year are we at now when you actually started production on the project?
It was February the 8th, 2021.
Oh, wow. So once the production started, it was full steam ahead. You guys really put that out.
Right. Well, the residency, the terms of the residency are that you have to get all of the animation done while you're there.
Okay.
And I was in France for 7 months. But that Christopher's sweater, oh no.
Okay, tell me about the sweater.
Took an extra year.
Oh, what?
We didn't even finish the tie-down animation at the residency. But here's the thing. I really wanted Christopher to have a beautiful sweater.
Well, it is. Well, there's so much of the film that's just so stunning. I mean, it moves in a really interesting way. Like the way that the characters move through the scenes, Christopher moves through the scenes. There's these beautiful sunsets. They're almost photoreal, which is amazing because the film doesn't feel photoreal, but there's these little aspects that do. And I was going to ask you about that, but now I'm curious about the sweater and what the deal is with the sweater.
Well, I'll do it quickly.
We have time.
We've got time. All right. Well, have you seen A Single Man, the Tom Ford film?
Tom Ford is an icon. Yes, I have.
Right. So Nicholas Hoult in that white mohair sweater in Tom Ford. So this is, if we go back in time, this is still me as a repressed homosexual watching Single Man and just seeing Nicholas Hoult in that white mohair sweater. I was like, I don't know what is going on here, but I really, really like this film. And especially that, the shot with the guy smoking outside the gas station. Like, oh, baby, you can see I was inspired by that. As you watch Christopher at Sea, I'm always like, I need to smoke a cigarette now. So I was like, well, there's already been the most beautiful sweater on the silver screen, but baby, I'm going to give it a go. And with the animators, I said to them, you know, if we have to choose between something that's on model or something that looks fashion, baby, let's choose fashion. So every drawing of the sweater basically is like a new drawing, and all of the sort of folds and stuff in the fabric are done quite loosely so that not only do you get like the feeling of the kind of fabric around him, but I also wanted to have it so that it created the aria ardente, which is the melody of the air, because being on a ship and stuff and everything's moving around so much, it's really hard to kind of like do wind in animation. So I wanted this like big fluffy sweater that could kind of give that sense of the air moving around him and stuff like that. And that's the smoke as well as an important part of that. And then we got that lovely texture, and the texture in the sweater is also, we also use that sweater in the sea to kind of bring this like visual, don't know the words, pairing between the two of them.
Yeah, there's a very melodic and almost like a trance that you fall into with the film. There's something about, and I think, you know, the movement of you, like you say, the smoke and the sweater, and just like I said before, the characters, it kind of puts you in this very kind of like dreamlike state, almost like you're taken into it. and the music plays a role into that as well. And I was curious because I know that you're also a harpist, you're a musician as well. You're an artist of many talents. Did you ever consider doing the music yourself? Because the music is beautiful. It works so well with the story, but I'm curious if you ever considered doing it yourself.
So I did really want that harpist credit on my IMDb page, but I started playing the harp in the pandemic, so I'm just not at the level of doing Schubert, you know.
So was it difficult to pick a soundtrack that would like capture the mood of the piece?
So all of the piano music in the film is a song cycle by Schubert called Die Schönmüllerin, and basically when I went on a cargo ship, which was I did at the beginning of 2018. I went on a cargo ship for 21 days, which I think is where like some of that realism in the backgrounds and stuff comes from, because I used it as a sort of writing residency / reference like trip, and took loads of photos and videos, and there's nothing to do on a cargo ship, and I was there for 21 days. So I was writing the film as well. But anyway, that ship was called La Traviata, and that like sent me on this journey of like into opera, and I got bit by the opera bug, as it is said. And then at the beginning of 2020, I was like, all right, I've been making this film for 5 years now. And I was trying to think of a way to kind of make it still relevant to who I am as a filmmaker now. And I'd been listening to this song cycle like madly in the depths of despair in the lockdown, in the pandemic. And we were going to use a different song for the karaoke scene because I wanted it to be kind of like this big number where the crew could like kind of all join in together, and it would kind of show Christopher's separation from that. But the estate of Edith Piaf wanted $6,000 to use the song. And I was like, I ain't paying some dead person $6,000. I'll use Schubert because he's been dead 200 years, so I can use it for free. So I put in the song from the song cycle, which is the second to last song. And then after that, I sort of I looked at the libretto of the song cycle, and I realized that the story of the song cycle had a very similar kind of narrative to Christopher. And a quick recap of the song cycle is there's a journeyman, and he finds this babbling brook, and he follows the brook and comes across a mill where he starts like doing gig freelance work at the mill. And he falls in love with the miller's daughter, but it's and they talk under moonlight, and he plants blue flowers under her window. And he's like so obsessed with her that he ties a green ribbon to a lute and hangs it on her window, and he sings this like soliloquy about how he loves the color green. And then in the morning, it's not the green of the ribbon that catches her eye, but a hunter in the forest catting green. And then he's talking about how he hates the color green, and then he's filled with like remorse of how this love is unrequited, and he is with the brook, and he's like, my destiny was to come here, and the brook found me, and so I should drown myself in the river.
Oh, the drama.
Oh, the drama. But here's the thing, the last song in the song cycle is a song that the brook sings to the journeyman, where he's telling him that he's going to be safe and that he can lie safe in the cool bed of the river. And Schubert composed that in the key of E major, which at the time was like, key signatures were like very well recognized by audiences. And in E major, it was all about sort of joy and happiness and a little bit of sort of unfinished stories. But it is said that true joy can be found in E major. So Schubert kind of wanted to end the song cycle, even though it was tragic, on like a positive, hopeful message. And with my dual narrative ending, I also wanted to kind of give people a little hint that it was this hopeful ending rather than perhaps a tragic ending. So as soon as I paired that with it, I was like, I'm off to the races here. And then I paired little bits from the story with Christopher's story. And I found that kind of gave voice to Christopher's unspoken emotions.
No,
So,
I mean, it works beautifully. And like I say, I was going to say the film, even though it's a very sort of somber, morose kind of story, it does end on a very kind of hopeful, into the sunrise way. Like it does leave you feeling kind of not really happy, but more upbeat, that there's something good at the end of it.
Right.
But you mentioned the karaoke scene, which to me, and I like Claire Denis strikes me as this film because she always has the best dance scenes in movies. And so every time I see a dance scene in a movie, I'm like, you've clearly seen a Claire Denis movie and you love it. But I'm curious, the inspiration for that karaoke scene, is there an inspiration somewhere? Because I kind of got Claire Denis vibes.
There is an inspiration, but I've been trying to like track it down since I've seen it, but I haven't seen it. And basically what I did was, when I started making this film, I was like, all right, I never went to any of the film theory lectures when I was at university. I've got to take myself back to school. So I watched this list of like 200 films that, what's his name? Scorsese said, you gotta watch. So I watched all these films, and in one of them, there's this like amazing moment where they're all on a bus, and someone starts singing this song on a bus, and then the whole bus is kind of like taken up in this like really joyful moment of singing together. And I was like, "Ooh, I want that in my movie." But then when it became the Schubert piece, it turned into kind of more of a fantasy of Christopher's. So it's a little bit different. But that was what, yeah. And
But
also
there's, sorry,
oh,
go ahead.
there's also just like nothing else to do on a cargo ship. In the evening.
There's an energy in that scene, like you can feel the like almost like you're in the room, like the joy of just these people being together sharing this moment. And there's a lot of moments like this in the project. I really love the movie. I think it's beautiful, and it has this really powerful message about self-discovery, and how like how lonely that can be and how difficult that can be, but how good it can be as well once you've kind of given into the reality of who you are. And I think that all comes through so beautifully in this very like wonderful 20-minute piece. I mean, it's amazing how much messaging is in there. And I was curious, you know, we talked a little bit about the sweater and how difficult that was to do. Was there any other part of the production that was really like tough? And how did you overcome that?
All of it. It was so difficult. I didn't know how difficult it was to make a film like that. No, the animation was like, I had such a great crew of animators, but I was quite demanding, I think, about the sort of realism in the animation that I was looking for. But I think the most difficult part for me was not just the sheer amount of work of that, but you know, I wanted it to look like my drawings without me doing all of the drawings. So that was quite a difficult stage. And I had to sort of, I basically would draw one of the cleanup frames for the cleanup people, and then they would kind of take it over from there, my lovely crew in Hungary. But the ocean was also quite difficult.
And there's a lot of it.
Why would you set a movie on a boat if it's animated? Because we made, I had a great team at PSYOP, which is a production company that I work at. And they were so generous with me of like creating all of these animated CG, what's it called? When you do a simulation, there you go. So then we had the CG simulations of the ocean, but you know, the film is 2D. So then we had to kind of play with it a little bit in comp, and then all of the foam and all of that other stuff is all hand painted over the top. So that was just like so much work. I had to feel bad about it. My effects lead, at the end he sent me this gif of a boat in the water, and he's at the back of the boat drawing the wake of the ship, and I'm at the front of it going, "More, give me more."
Do you kind of think that you maybe, I'm curious if you think you maybe found your voice as a director with this film more than maybe your previous projects?
I think I definitely, the director that I want to be is definitely grown out of this project. And so I used a lot of things which I had been thinking about, but you know, when you're co-directing with someone, it's a joint, it's like a marriage, you know, you make compromises about the things that you want. And one of the reasons I went off on my own is because I wanted to create a queer story and move more into like stuff that felt a bit more personal to me. And I'm obsessed with Luchino Visconti and his melodramatic realism, and the rules around that was something I really wanted to incorporate in my work. So this is, and like the use of music and opera and all of that stuff is definitely sort of my vibe.
You've worked as well. You've done one live action project. You did a music video, which is so pretty. I love it. I love it. It's beautiful. What was that? How was that experience different than working in animation?
Thank you for saying it was beautiful.
It is. It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous.
I really liked working in live action actually because of well, I love collaboration, and in Christopher at Sea I got to do a lot of collaboration and work with artists that I really admire and kind of bring them in, but it's so slow, you know. I'd be in this animation studio and it was like, how's he walking over there? And then 3 days later I'd be like, oh yes, it's coming along. But with live action, you know, you're in the moment, you're capturing a moment, and to work with a team in a way where you're collaborating and finding something, the immediacy of it, I thought was a really nice change from animation. And also it's just like being on set is fun, even though it's like boring. Standing around waiting for things. But that team collaboration was really fun. Yeah.
Would you do it again? Would you do another live action project?
I do have a couple of things in mind. But what I'm doing is I'm taking that idea of the media collaboration with people and I'm bringing that to animation. So do you want to know what happens when the ship gets to shore?
Oh, well, of course.
So
is this the next project?
The next project is I'm what's it called? I'm developing a sequel feature film, which is what happens when the ship gets to shore. And I'm going to use Unreal Engine to so that I can bring in dancers and choreographers and work with a cinematographer to capture that kind of excitement of the live moment, and then bring that into the animation world. So I'm kind of combining the two things that I love.
And how are you finding working with Unreal and virtual production? Because that's sort of the buzz thing at the moment.
It is the buzz thing. I don't know how to do it, so. But I'm learning, and I've got some great friends who are helping me out with it and stuff. So I think it's exciting. And also just like the ability to be able to like change the time of day or like move the sun and it will show up immediately is like psychotic. So I kind of like that.
Well, I, for one, cannot wait to see the sequel or the feature film. We should just call it that. And I hope you'll consider sending it to us once it's ready. Hopefully it's not 7 years from now.
Right. In 2032, I will send you a little note.
Tom, it's been such a pleasure. I've had so much fun speaking with you. Again, congratulations on the film. It really is a wonderful achievement. And it's funny because it feels kind of at odds with who you are as this very bright, cheery person. And the film feels so, morose and we already said, very hopeful, but it's a beautiful piece of work. Congratulations.
Thank you. If we'd have done this little chat in 2015, I wouldn't have been quite so jolly.
Well, we're happy to have you now.
Thanks so much. It's been a pleasure talking about the film.